Yeah,
keep the lights on.
funding has been dreadful this year. There's been a real lack of interest in giving money to companies.
Yeah.
But if you're just taking one spot, you mean crystal, and it's one like, and it's surrounded by meters of other stuff. That's like going to a gold vein where you got some visible gold and chipping out that visible gold, and then you assay that, and oh, this is the grade is 1,000 kilos per ton, right? Because it's pure gold.
Well, hello, everybody out there, and welcome to Betweenplays Stock Market Strategies. And once again, we have with us Mr. John Kaiser of Kaiser Research. How you doing? So nice to have you back on the show.
Albert, it's great to be on Betweenplays again.
Well, thank you so much. We've been talking a little bit about what's going on out there in EV world, lithium world, and stuff like that, and BRW. There's a lot of conversations going on. So basically, if we could just maybe look at a little bit of what is going on when we look at maybe the EV sector or the whole mineral sector at the moment. Is 2024 maybe gearing up to be something that might be a little bit tough, maybe not? Or what are you thinking a little bit on that?
Well,
What's your
on the
thoughts?
Canadian resource junior scene, the attitude has been this is the end of an entire ecosystem. We've crashed through the extinction threshold. There's no support in the financial sector anymore. The retail audience has vanished. The government isn't doing anything to encourage exploration and development in Canada. And I've seen just waves of capitulation selling, uh, and it looks like at the end of the year it's lights out. Now the system won't die overnight; it'll take several years to completely die. But for this bottom fish season that I'm experiencing right now, I'm building this huge bottom fish collection. I'm
Yes.
finding incredible stocks at very cheap prices with still real people, with real projects, with stories that nobody is paying attention to. And I'm listening to these stories, say, wow, this is incredible. The valuations are good. So I've been sort of rolling up my sleeves and putting them out there for my subscribers to accumulate in what could be a really ugly end of the year. But I'm starting to see green shoots of a potential turnaround next year. And key has been this perception in the market that maybe the interest rate hikes are done, that we will start seeing easing next year without having crashed the American economy into the garbage can. So there's a bit of a risk on mood, and gold making its latest rally through $2,000. I mean, the big thing for the market is, even though $2,500 doesn't mean that much, the big thing with gold is people want 2,000 to be the base from which future highs are made, not the ceiling that it always kind of bumps up again and then crashes back below. This has put a real pull on the market, especially, we've had pretty strong general CPI inflation, but the inflation for the inputs to building and operating a mine has been more than the general CPI. So even though gold's been here $1,900 or so, that has gobbled up by the increased cost, which is why everybody's been in such a bad mood. And even the big mining companies, they're not trading at the crazy multiples of cash flow. The gold producers, the market's starting to treat gold production like base metal production. But if the inflation has been reasonably subdued and we don't get any other shock to the system, next year could be a turnaround for the resource juniors. And that's what I'm gearing up for. As for the EV sector, well, that's a separate question.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, the EV sector is a separate question. I mean, naturally, there's some forces that are saying things like, oh well, there's a bearish look on some stuff because maybe maybe the governments wanted to do things too quickly. Maybe they need a little bit more time and stuff like that. But then I look at people like I look at Tesla vehicles, like they're just shooting out, and now we have Ford and other companies that are saying, hey, listen, maybe the charging stations that Elon Musk has, maybe that we should use that as like the go-to for the infrastructure. So it's like, and then again, you have people like Gina Reinhardt and billionaires and all these major lithium producers and stuff. They're just trying to buy everything up. So, the EV
Yeah.
sector is so questionable on whether it's going to be, bearish for 2024 or bullish into 2025. I don't know. What's your thoughts on that? Like the billionaires just going, no, I want to own that. You're not taking that away from me.
Well, that $35 price for lithium carbonate that we experienced all of last year, it was unnecessary. It was kind of counterproductive because people saw this high price and they said, "Oh, this is fantastic." But at those prices, the crappiest pegmatite can be put into production. The world would be flooded. So it has since come down. That high price was caused because of the lithium winter in 2018 to 2020, where the Australians were so good at mobilizing new supply from their pegmatites that it overshot the demand growth from the EV sector. So they all stalled everything, slowed down their feasibility studies. And then in 2021, we saw the supply demand imbalance reverse. So all of a sudden, the EVs were growing faster than expected. And now what we're witnessing is again a reversal where the big producers, they expanded, they ramped up, and now we're seeing supply, even as the EV growth slows below. It's still growing, but
Yes.
it's not at the same rate. And part of the problem is the Chinese slowdown. But it's these high interest rates in the United States, the $7,500 credit. You don't get it at the store, at the dealership. You have to apply for it next April when you file your taxes. But next year,
Yeah.
you're going to be able to get it off the sticker price when you drive that car off the lot. So
Yeah.
I think we should see things bump up again next year. So all this hand wringing about the EV sector,
Oh yeah.
I don't. That's just a temporary thing. The
I think so too.
reality is that the car companies, they're committed to this, to
Yeah.
growing and replacing the ICE sector, but by 2030. And if the numbers that I'm familiar with, which are like 600% supply expansion required for the projections for sales, double that, 1,200% more if Toyota's solid state battery
Oh
can
yeah.
be made for ordinary cars like Camrys and Corolla, so that the masses are happy to buy it at a decent price and get rid of the charge and range anxiety. So
Yes.
the issue I think with the market is that they're kind of using the gold mentality is, oh, what's the trend in the price of gold? Well, if gold's up, we're happy. If it's down, we're in the dumps. But lithium is not like that. Lithium has to be $5 to $10 a pound for a meaningful supply to come on stream by 2030. So you look at the discovery equation and find a deposit like the CV5, 109 million tons of 1.42%, and get it into production, 1% or better, large tonnage. That's what you should be looking for. That's what the Canadian investors should be focused on. Don't worry about the lithium carbonate price. I mean, it's 8.13 today. It'll probably hit $5 before it turns around again. I don't think it's going back below $3 a pound like it did in 2020. And once it stops going down and starts going up again, I mean, it's not a reason to be excited about it. It's just the reason to say, okay, we are not having a lithium winter again. We're just watching the supply and demand ebb with regard to the economy and of course the supply strategies. And right now I think there's some degree of downward manipulation because a lot of the producers are negotiating the long-term contract, because hardly
Yes.
any lithium products gets sold at the spot price. That's just for the surplus out there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of I think a bit of a Chinese manipulation to get good prices from the producers.
Oh, absolutely. I was thinking about this. Like everything's coming at the exact same time. We have this sort of negative sentiment, but at the same time, I keep on looking at where the money is, and the money just keeps on going there. So there's two really interesting things that you brought up. One was the 5 to 10%, not 10%, but $5 to $10 range, because at one point spot price is too high and everything like that. A year ago or a year and a half ago, when we first did our first video, what I thought was really interesting, we actually spoke about this, that when the the spot price is too high, it's not really good for everyone, right? Because the vehicles are too expensive. You can have any company just say, oh, okay, here you go, let's try to get. So there was a range. And right now we were talking about it the other day because we saw that it's come back down to like the 2018 levels, about that area. I think we were saying that we're at the top of where we should be right now, but we can still go a little lower, and it'd be actually better in general for the market. Is that correct when we talk about the lithium spot price?
Yeah, I have this table where I compare the lithium carbonate price to the grade, and at 1%, at $5 a pound, it's about $245 rock value, and of course double that at $10. So we're talking often open pitable 250 to $500 rock in this range. Now, 25% of that gets sucked away by converting, by the refining of the spodumene concentrate. So you lose a bit of that, but we're still talking something that's in the gold sector doesn't exist. I mean,
True.
our bulk tonnage deposits there are now they're like doing 0.5, 0.6 gram per ton. This is like $25 rock that they want to open pit. And that's again something that the audience out there hasn't quite figured out all the
No.
math
No.
about this and the opportunity. I mean, I've argued that like in the James Bay area, because it's so novel that these pegmatites might actually be worth something, the most useless company could end up face planting onto a world-class pegmatite, provided they put boots on the ground and when they see it, start to raise money and put proper exploration to work on it.
Yes. So just to get back to one thing, and then go onto that point there exactly. When we're talking about range anxiety, I mean, a little earlier you're saying that we got to get over this. I mean, when we look at the LFMPs right now, Goshen's putting out stuff that's got like 1,000 kilometer range. You got the LFP battery as well, that with battery innovation that they've are using, can get to 800 kilometer ranges. This is pretty good. And I was looking also that Toyota, bringing up Toyota, they've just said, not buy to the whole hydrogen sector, because for other vehicles they'll do it, but when it comes to the retail vehicle, like for us people, they're going like all electric. So we're looking at solid state batteries whenever they come up with that. We're looking at the future of lithium in range anxiety also being eliminated. We're there. The time has been put in. Talking about what you're just mentioning now, when it comes to companies are out there and are able to go and go find things. I was looking at something, grab samples. I like to get into that because we're talking about all kinds of companies, and if you have the money and all this kind of stuff, I think it's important because we're educational and people are learning, and like you're saying, people haven't done the math. They don't. So I think that it's good to talk to someone like yourself to understand the importance of stuff. I am not the guy I like asking the questions, but grab samples. I mean, this is not the same as having a drilling core result assays. I mean, grab samples are that. Like you have you see a pegmatite, you smack something off, you grab the best piece, and then you say, well, this is what I have. Or should we be going with drilling cores out of the ground type stuff? Can you maybe explain a little bit about grab samples and their importance or non-importance when we compare it to drilling, please?
Okay, so here's how the exploration cycle is working for these pegmatites. Pegmatites have typically been documented. Oh, this is a pegmatite. Yeah, you can recognize it. It's got various colors or so, but there are different types of pegmatites, and the farther they've wandered from the source, the more fractionated, the more evolved they get, and you get the concentration of lithium and tantalum into spodumene crystals. So when you go into the archives, or even when you use Google Earth or commercial satellite imagery, and you find these things, you have to put your boots on the ground, and you need to take samples to be able to confirm where in this range of pegmatite types there are. And you don't really want to get the ones that have beryllium and rare earths in them, because those will not have high lithium, and they might, even worse, they might even have uranium in it, which you don't really want. Now,
Yeah.
this summer was such a disappointment with these forest fire closures in the James Bay region. Everybody was geared up to go out there, put boots on the ground,
Yes.
walk the land, visit the known pegmatites.
Yeah.
If they were smart enough, they had an XRF gun and would take readings. And some companies have managed to do all this, and they've even published maps with potassium rubidium readings. And what you want is, you want them to be, the ratio to be less than 20. When you get up there to 100, 200 or higher, then it's one of those pegmatites that you don't want. So once you take a reading like that, you also try to identify spodumene in the field. But a lot of times the qualified professional is not present, able to do that. So the job then is to just take samples, representative samples along that pegmatite dike, and get them back, and then get the chemistry of what is this thing like. And of course, you try to also see what the limits are, like how much is outcropping. Now, in a lot of cases, much of it is buried under swamp or bush, and you only see a little part. So even if you get back some high grade values, they don't mean anything. If you want to have a sample that's meaningful, you do a channel sample, which is you take a saw and you saw maybe a half-inch, 1-inch wide, half-inch deep channel across, chip the rocks out, bag them, and then assay everything. And then you have, it's like a horizontal drill hole across outcrop. And that kind of result is meaningful. Grabs only tell you, okay, this is a lithium enriched pegmatite. This is good. Now we need to see how big it is, where it is, and put a drill across it. The highest you can get, I think, is about 8% in spodumene, based on the other elements that are in the spodumene mineral. So you know, when you get 6%, that's almost a pure chunk of spodumene. But if you're just taking one spodumene crystal, and it's one, like, and it's surrounded by meters of, you know, other stuff, that's like going to a gold vein where you got some visible gold and chipping out that visible gold, and then you assay that, and the grade is 1,000 kilos per ton, right? Because it's pure gold. So grab samples are just an indicator of whether your pegmatite is interesting or not. The next stage is to go in there and put drills across it, and this is where the market right now is impatient. Like we saw Q2 Metals report some spodumene intervals from the MIA, the southern end of their MIA trend, and the market reacted really negatively, because it didn't really see geometry evolving. The market has now reached a point where we want to see what the strike is, what the thickness is, and how far down dip, so that we can do an approximate tonnage calculation. Such as was possible with CD5. People were pretty close in their estimates of what the formal 43101 would come up. And this is the big issue now with Brunswick Exploration and its Mirage project. We've seen the big boulders. They may have sampled it, but what's the point? It's got huge crystals in it, and then there's gang rock beside it. So what does telling you that there's 6% spodumene crystals inside this big rock? Where did they come from? How big is it? When you drill it, how does the lithium grade average? And the mistake that the Q2 Metals guys did is they broke it all down into little intervals on that one hole, but it was like 60-meter interval, but the spaces between were totaled only 6 meters. So 10% of that was junk rock. The rest was spodumene, but the market saw all these little bits and assumed, oh, this is a bust. So a lot of learning to go, but it's really, you want to see the scale of the system and then let the drillers go to work on it.
Yeah. So basically, in order to drill, naturally you got to raise money. I think talking about Brunswick, we got like about 16 million now with the flow through that closed. So money is naturally money in mining is extremely important, because there's no revenue that's coming in. So you always have to be able to get money. And the way the TSX venture is right now, or just the market in general, money is pretty hard to come by. So there's also that, right? I mean, that plays a part in the whole mining sector, I believe, is raising the money to keep things, to keep the lights on. Yeah,
Yeah,
to keep the lights on.
funding has been dreadful this year. There's been a real lack of interest in giving money to companies, unwillingness to price them higher on incrementally positive news. And
Yeah.
then you have that bane called flow through, where these people aren't really betting on the fundamentals of the company. They're just doing a tax deferral strategy. And as soon as this comes free trading, they dump the stock, and that kills the market price. So the companies demonstrating incremental progress on the fundamentals and earning a valuation increase that
Yeah.
corresponds. That hasn't worked. Now, it's worked quite well for Brunswick. They're sitting there at roughly a $200 million valuation right now, which is ahead of what they have disclosed. You really need to see, at least visually see, what the tonnage potential is. And that's why the market's quite frustrated. The last meaningful news release they put out was October 5th. They've had nothing to add to that, but they did put out a news release this week, which was interesting.
Yeah, I think that the two interesting things that I've seen within the last few months was, one, there was a slide number 8, where the title says, one of the largest grassroots lithium exploration discoveries in the last 40 years. That on a slide at conferences being revealed to the public. I mean, what was the last, you know, what was that? Like, was that some people are saying it's PMET, but then some other people say it's not. Some people say it's Namaska if we go back. So, I mean, to say, to put that out there is a big thing. And then what you're talking about this week, we see that they accelerated the purchasing of the Mirage for 100%.
Yeah, now that was a bit of a marketing gimmick. Oh yeah, we love this so much, we're accelerating. Well, they didn't have to pay that much money, and they'd already spent probably the $1 million needed to vest for 100%. The significance that I read into that declaration
Okay.
was, if you are sitting on a world-class discovery, then all of a sudden lawyers scour through the agreements and find things that were not right, and then try to claim that you actually don't have title to it. So this is a preemptive move that forces Globex's Jack Stock to look at all this, accept the payments, and basically confirm that Brunswick has vested under the terms of the agreement struck in late January, early February. So that can be interpreted as a positive sign. The fact that they have built a winterized camp already and have now funding in place and plans to drill 15,000 meters all within the first quarter,
Oh yeah.
that is a very bullish sign. So
Yeah.
the market keeps wanting to see that it's kind of in this show me move,
Yes.
but it hasn't really sold off Brunswick. Though Brunswick, if it stretches out too long, could end up in a dangerous situation where whatever it is that they do publish, the market will say it's not good enough. I'm hoping that we get a scale type of a news release soon showing where are all these outcrops within this 800-meter wide corridor. Have they found anything underneath the boulder field? I mean, they have 3 kilometers of big boulders. Like, it's hard to believe that they just rolled 3 kilometers from the part where they do have outcrops. Maybe they're also sitting on something substantial and have simply been sort of frost heaved and modestly moved from the underground source. And of course, when they
Wow.
go to the whole 12 kilometers, I'm sure they've had their boots in there inspecting the whole thing.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for an update on the scale of what they are doing. And they've been drilling now a fair bit. And
Yep.
in the beginning, they're trying to figure out the geometry. Which way does it strike? Which way does it dip? Are these on echelon dikes like the Allchem Galaxy Seer, or what's at the southern end of Q2 Metals Mia? What does this look like? But by now, the body language that they're signaling with all the steps that they're taking, I think they have figured it out. And if they show us what it is that they figured out, that I think will be the next move in the stock. That's when serious money will come in. And it's kind of like the Azure Minerals. I mean, that's incredible. They in October last year, they reported that they had documented all these LCT type pegmatites within their Andover nickel project.
Yes.
And a year later, they've got a bid that values the project on a 100% basis at 2.4 billion. And then Gina Reinhart and Chris Ellison's Mineral Resources, they step in and crank the price even higher. Poor SQM. Now it's about a $3 billion value. There's no resource estimate even in place. So Brunswick is positioned for that kind of market response, but it needs to show us the scale and distribution of their pegmatite system.
I agree with you 100%, John. Yes, it also comes down, I guess, to investor patience. But, talking about that, when you look at everything out there and who has the money, who doesn't have the money, and, I think we have to be a little bit careful in the mining sector, or anything that's research development, or anytime when you need a funding coming in from somewhere. So it doesn't only have to be mining, right? Money is hard to come by right now. So that's one of the other things I look at. John, is there basically anything else that you'd like to mention to the viewers out there? And I'm sure that you're going to have a lot of the Kaiser people watching the show, and definitely we'll be linking all of your sites and your Twitter accounts in the description below. So everybody that's looking at John, and you want to go to his website and stuff, it'll all be in the description. John, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Oh, well, next year there's going to be a substantial change in what it costs to be a KRO member. Anybody who's a member by the end of this year at $450 a year, they'll end up being grandfathered. In the new year, I'm going to change it to a $200 a month auto renewal system. I think this whole space is going to have an incredible year next year, not just for the lithium, as we like the Brunswick Mirage is so important, because although there's some controversy about who has made the best grassroots discovery, things like CV5, well, those lithium pegmatites were known outcropping. Many of these things were discovered a long time ago. In the case of Mirage, it was a report of a boulder, not an outcrop, which attracted Bob Wares and had him do the deal. So in a sense, this is a true grassroots discovery, because the outcrop wasn't really documented. And I think many of these juniors that are out there doing boots on the ground and are waiting for their samples to confirm they have LCT type, we're going to see a repetition of that over and over again. We lost an entire season. We should have, the space should have been roaring by now, but it's simply been delayed a year. And plus we have, I think in the background, we have a stronger gold price. We may see base metal prices start trending up again. We may see life and money flow back into the junior resource sector. So I'm gearing up for that. But if you want to be part of the sort of bottom fish collection and study it now as I slowly add companies, do your 450 membership now and make yourself part of the long-term club that gets grandfathered in at that price, because when the market's hot, the price will also be very hot.
I understand. You know what? That's good for everybody to know out there. So let's just go paraphrase out or go over that for a second. So $450, you're saying that people can get
US
in
for a
US,
1 year
okay, for 1 year. So they get in now before the year's end. They're grandfathered in, and then starting in 2024, it's what, 200 US membership per month auto renewal.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So this is a great price for people to get in now. Absolutely, they're going to be saving tons of money.
Yeah, and
it's a great deal. And just to say, when we look at the grassroots, I think that from my own, please correct me if I'm wrong, my own research, that was Namaska, right? The grassroots discovery. I think it was
all these things were originally grassroots discoveries when somebody noticed them, but many of these deposits have been known about for decades.
But one of the largest, I think,
a nothing burger. Back in even as recent as 2005, the entire market was worth $200 million. Last year, it was about 20 billion. And we're talking about it going to a $200 billion market by 2030.
But people are not calculating any of that in. They don't, a lot of the, that's why it's so good to have you on the show and we discuss this, because it's so educational to have you on the show. And you're right. People are not thinking about the massive amount of growth overall in this sector. It's insane. And I mean, look, I've done the OpenAI, ChatGPT, I've done all these things, and I've looked to see the largest in 40 years. I came up with Namaska. If that would be the company, because I don't know, I'm not a professional. I use Google and all these other things to go out there. But Namaska is a 33 plus year mine life with room to grow if they wanted to, with high grades. I mean, this is a statement within itself.
And the nature of these pegmatites are such too that they're not like a big giant porphyry system where you're going to have 120, 150,000 ton per day operation. You're going to have much smaller scale operations, and it's like the physical geometry that limits. So you need many of these things to be put into production to feed the future needs of the EV sector. It's not like the rare earth sector where you get a few monsters like Bionoble, which provides a big chunk of it and they can scale it bigger, or Arashaf or Niobium in Brazil. They can keep increasing the throughput there indefinitely to accommodate demand. But with these lithium pegmatites, you can't do that. This is why this is such a fabulous space for the resource juniors. And at some point, the big guys like Rio Tinto and and even the Pilbara minerals and the mineral resources, they're going to come in and try to grab the emerging discoveries. There's only a few emerging discoveries of scale right now. PMET's one of them, and Brunswick hopefully is another one of them. But there's going to be many, many more coming out, especially in the James Bay region, which clearly has a world-class lithium endowment.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, John, for being on Between Plays. And for everybody out there, always remember our motto: research, prepare, plan, execute. John, thank you. I'd love to have you on the show in the future again. And please, everybody, go to the links below. You're going to have the websites there, the Twitter. You're going to have all of John's links there. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Albert.
Between Plays, it's the journey and what you do between where you are and where you want to be. Research, prepare, plan, and execute your strategy. Do your DD and stay strong in visualizing and achieving your goals. Our strategy is unique since 2020. An original concept imitated, never duplicated. Real conversations with media influencers, educational and expert speakers, analysts and consultants. Between Plays, bridging the gap between companies and investors.